Welcome to all of you here today, and particularly to all the speakers who have brilliantly enlightened the audience. And I have carried a lot of interesting notes from all these speakers, both the old and the young. Two brilliant minds from schools and college have also spoken to us beautifully their inner feelings. And we have got other speakers like Dr. Annadurai, who has taken the mantle of success to a great limit right up to the moon. In fact, all of them, Dr. Kalanidhi and Dr. Sashank and Ramachandran, seems like a whole galaxy is present here. There's a moon man, there's a sun man, there is a, name it, Martian man, and there's a whole lot of stars, all of you in the audience, waiting to be moons. And I'm very happy to be here in this very august gathering, discussing a very burning, very vital, very crucial and important topic of bringing the best in us outside. So I won't belabor some of these points that have already been made by many of them, but I must say that a lot of what I wanted to say has already been said by these great minds, and I must thank all of them very much for their deep thinking and for their wonderful expression. And I'm sure that all of you have a lot to take home, just reflecting on these things so beautifully. Right. So we particularly call this the old normal, as you have all understood in these days of the COVID times. And I hope all of you are keeping fit and fine, because some of the most natural and most organic and most humane of all activities is to get educated. But today has been a lot of quotes about Einstein here and there. So this one I just want to bring to you. So it's really hit me a lot. The only thing that interferes with my learning is my education. It was highly interesting to me because I think he knew what all of us are suffering from, an education that has been thrust on us. I felt this very much right from my younger years because I had a mixed feeling about the type of education I was getting right from the young age. You know, when I came into this movement, before I came, I was playing music and everything, and I heard a group called the Pink Floyd. If some of you have not heard it, especially the students, should go and hear this song called The Wall. It's a very beautifully done a music video. It completely illustrates everything that I wanted to say. I would have put it up, but for lack of time, I wouldn't do that. But you can go to the YouTube and get that. Pink Floyd, The Wall, wherein the children shout together, we don't need no education, we don't need no thought control. And it shows graphically what happens. That affected me a lot because that was my experience. Right from my young age, I was doing good in class. In fact, my maths teacher would always knock me on the head with her knuckles. I was sitting right in the front and I was scoring a centum in class. I was coming first in class. But every day, she would ceremoniously knock me on the head for no reason. And watching this, all the other students were, if this is your situation, what about me? And they would feel very much for me. I had another teacher who would take a scale and beat up people until the scale breaks for just expressing his own anger or whatever. And my brother would come and tell me in school that he was such a good student. And then he asked a question that was very smart. And it was upsetting what the teacher had said in science. He told him, Benjamin Pandaram, to use the local terminology. Tamil na vande avlova pesa mudiyala innikku pala per irukkiradunala ana Tamil koncham solla nenachena Benjamin nilranu solli, because why? You asked a question that stumps me. So watching all these things, I always felt that I definitely wanted to meet somebody who had an open education system, because there's so many things to learn in this world. There's so many things to learn, and our education system really snubs everybody off quite a bit. So I'm going to start this today's session with an upbeat picture of you. The backside of a dog. And if all of you are wondering why, I'll tell you just now. The backside of a dog is spoken about by Chanakya Pandit, the great statesman. He said that the tail of the dog is useless. Shuna pucham idam vyartham. Nagupta goptayante shaktaha namlecha nivaharani. It is useless, the tail of a dog. Why? It doesn't cover the bottom of the dog, the anus of the dog. Nor is it useful in kicking away all the flies. It's a useless tail. Our education system is exactly like a dog's tail. It doesn't cater to the internal development of the person, nor does it cater to his external requirement, right? So having said that, I wanted to actually examine with you quickly, because I said many of the things I want to say have already been said brilliantly by all of them, what education is and why we get educated, how we should get educated. Before that, what's happening today, just in numbers for you, something that you may already know. The world's population is 7.8 billion and India's population is 17% of it. Almost 1/5. Education literacy in India is 69%. And Tamil Nadu literacy is 8.3%. The ranking of the education system in India is 37th in the world. And the GDP, out of the GDP, we're spending 3.3% for education, but elsewhere it's like 6%. Students' population in India is 260 million, and there are 1.5 million schools. I'm not talking about colleges and universities. The second in the world, the first is China. Every day, 25% of the teachers are absent in school. And 30% an odd number of teachers, 31% have no degree. They're teaching. They don't have education, and they're in the education system. Nothing wrong with it, but there is something interesting for you to note. And what happens after all this great education has happened? I just want to show you the other side of it. Things that you may not like to actually know about. 25% of search engine requests are related to sex. 35% of downloads from the internet are pornographic. 70% of men aged 18 to 24 visit a porn site at least once per month. And these are all very educated people, mind you. And survey here in Coimbatore, 70% of boys began watching porn at 10 years. Amazing. Gambling, projected $59.1 billion traded. Not traded, gambled upon in 2010, and it's projected to rise. This is an old projection, 130 billion in 2018. Shocking, 70% of the youth in Punjab, they're into drugs. And talk about smoking. All this is by very educated people who are very well enabled, right? So look at these statistics. We are already in 2020, 12% of all deaths globally will be due to smoking. Half of those who start smoking in adolescence will die in middle age, losing around 22 years of normal life. I'm bringing to you stuff from recognized institutions. An average cigarette contains 401 poisons and 43 cancer-causing chemicals. You name it, you have everything that goes with it. And talk about the, Dr. Shashangan was talking about using technology and making a hybrid, right? But he also speaking about the dangers of technology. Here, smart, intelligent kids, very well informed because of the access to all sorts of information. They also know how to make sure that their not so very technology enabled parents and seniors won't know what they would actually be doing. So the question is, let's have technology for ourselves and not allow technology to use us. So what exactly should we think about when we talk about education? I just want to list here briefly that Dr. Annadurai brilliantly spoke about questions and inquiry. And Dr. Shashangan also spoke about inquiry and questions. And Dr. Kalanidhi did speak a lot about having the old system of Gurukul education, in which people have a good relationship with their teacher and they can ask anything and everything. Really, education means catering to that nascent capability to inquire and learn and not dumbing it down. then knowing what is real, exactly what's happening. All the philosophers in the world, all science is trying to do is to understand what is real, what's happening, where are we from, what's this world about. And then more than anything else, bringing out from inside us, like Rohit was mentioning, educar means making of the real person. So this rich relationship and having an education system that is inside out. I'll go fast. First, about inquiry. I told you that inquiry, like even Anaduraji was saying, that I liked what my father did to me. He provided the necessary climate. He got down to where I am and gave me the road and made the facility necessary for me to travel up, facilitating my education. In other words, answering all your questions. The teacher and the student have a very, very close nexus, a relationship. And the questioning attitude should be highly encouraged. Everybody should question everything. And this is what is key to learning, like Dr. Shashangan Ramanathan was also saying. Everybody has a desire to know. Don't underestimate anybody. Don't say somebody is uneducated. Even the uneducated, quote unquote, according to our understanding of education in modern parlance, you may think doesn't have much of a question. He has questions. He has questions. In fact, in the Vedic system of thought, everybody and every entity has questions. The birds have questions and they're chirping all the time. Everybody has got questions that are being answered, right? So fanning the inquiry, not dumbing, is very important. I just wanted to, tell you one instance in Prabhupada's life. I will break into Tamil a little bit. Prabhupada ஜீவச்சரித்திரத்திலிருந்து ஒரு சின்ன ஒரு இன்ஸ்டன்ஸ். Prabhupada வந்து அவருடைய அப்பா வந்து கௌர் மோகன் டே, his father was. He took him to a marriage. I want to show my son what a marriage is. அவர் வந்து ஒரு மேரேஜ் செரமனி கூட்டிட்டு போனார், விவாக யஜ்யத்துக்கு. அந்த விவாக யஜ்யத்துல அவர் வந்து பலதும் கேள்வி கேட்டுட்டே இருந்தார். சின்ன குழந்தை பிரபுபாதர், நம்மளுடைய ஃபவுண்டர், இஸ்கானுடைய ஃபவுண்டர் பக்தி வேதாந்த சுவாமி பிரபுபாதர், அபைன்னு அவருடைய பேர். குழந்தைங்க வந்து கொஸ்டின் கேட்டுட்டு they kept on asking so many questions. What is that? Why they're burning the fire? Why they're going around it? Who is that? Is the priest? Who is that? The bride? The bridegroom? Who are all these people? Relations? That? This? Why they're giving us food? So many things. And his father answered everything very patiently. Then when they returned home, there was a long silence as they were coming back home. After he came home, "Father," he said, "are you married?" He asked his father a question. And his father immediately laughed. He was so excited about his son's question. He didn't say, "It's a stupid question. Don't you understand that this isn't like the Benjamin Ilra Mutacha of, my old school fame." He didn't, immediately judge him. He said, "You are thinking. Your question may be, out of place, but it's a question of inquiry. Every question of inquiry should be encouraged. And everybody should be dealt with in a different way. Every student is different. And each teacher should, like, Kalanidhi sir was saying about getting down to the Gurukul system of education. So it's very important for us to encourage inquiry. Most important. And that is so natural to us. Teachers in this world are maybe the greatest and most important people. They call it a noble profession, but I would go beyond that. If there were no teachers in this world, this whole world will be dumb. So all glories to teachers. And the teacher is a person who lives what he teaches. Walking his talk. Walk your talk is a famous, phrase. A teacher is a person who has been a wonderful student already and who has learned everything from already another teacher. And he is able to give that whole experience to the student. What does the student get from the teacher? The capacity to reason, reasoning skill. Gives him knowledge, not just knowledge alone. He gives him his experience, have him observe things, examine things, ask questions, analyze it, do critical thinking, and train him in being a person who can do it on his own. Is not dependent on a system or anything. So that's a real teacher. Teacher is a person who really folds his sleeves and gets down, works with the student full, right? And the student in return, how should he be? He should greatly appreciate the teacher because the teacher is giving him something fantastic, amazing. Is pushing him up in his life, in his knowledge levels, in his understanding, his realization of the things around him, how to live, what to do, what not to do, what's the goal of life, where to move ahead, how to hitch up my wagon there. All these things are being told by him, right? So he's very grateful to the teacher, and he's humble, is full of inquiry, and he wants to serve the teacher. That serving mood is very important. He's not asking for money. The teacher is not asking for money. And he's not saying, unless you give me money, I don't teach. That's horrible. That's very low class. Most of our institutions are rigged with that type of a basic notion that education can be a very interesting and profitable business enterprise. It's a totally wrong thing to think about. That's not where education starts. Education is about giving without any conditions, without any judgment, and you'll produce the best of students. And therefore, the student remains very, very grateful to the teacher, and he wants to offer himself. He offers his service. So this student-teacher relationship, one-to-one learning relationship, is amazing. It is something that we need to check. Dronacharya was teaching, you all know Mahabharata, was teaching the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And then in came a very interesting assignment for him. See how noble they are. Teaching, they'll teach to anybody. On the other side, he had his dear friend who turned out to be his enemy, Drupada. And Drupada was, sworn and waiting to wreak revenge against Dronacharya for some misunderstanding. We don't want to get into the details. But he created out of his whole yajna and all his sacrifice and everything, Draupadi and his brother. And he sent his son to learn from Dronacharya. I think his name is Drishtaketu. He sent to learn from Dronacharya. And he's sending his son to his arch enemy to learn. And he went there and he said, my father has sent me here. The prediction is that he is this person who is going to kill Dronacharya in the future. They knew the future. Like Dr. Kalanidhi was saying, we want Thiruvalluvar type of people who can predict the future also. So these people were already existing in the Gurukul. They could see by astrology and everything. And it is said that this is the person who is going to kill Dronacharya, and he has come to learn from Dronacharya. And Dronacharya knew that he's a person who is destined to kill me. But he didn't say anything to him. He didn't refuse education. He said, your father is sent here. He knows I'm a great teacher and he wants me to teach you the best. Yes, I'll teach you. This is nobility. I'm going to teach the person who is my arch enemy, his son, and I know that he's going to kill me. And I teach him all the secrets of warfare, missiles, weaponry, everything. This is the meaning of a teacher. He's not afraid of anything. He's willing to give knowledge free, amazingly. Similarly, Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada landed after 2 heart attacks, like you saw the Prime Minister of UK speaking there in that video. He landed in America and he had only $7 in his pocket. There's nothing, peanuts for living in America and doing something. But he started talking to all the local people, the bums and the hippies and everybody on the road, drunk and drugged. He gave them Bhagavad Gita. He gave them food to eat, prasadam. And he was a father to them. And they all came out of their gross, low-class living and became high-class persons following the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, becoming a gentleman, becoming a very well-behaved, cultured personality, and knowing the Gita and talking the Gita to others. They're totally transformed by the influence of one person, a powerful teacher willing to sacrifice and change and transform people's hearts. Education is about the heart. It's not only about the intelligence. It's not only about learning things by rote and writing at the exams, learning the art of getting past exams. It's transfer of knowledge from heart to heart. And there is a very deep relationship between the student and teacher. It's highly enjoyable. Everybody remembers such type of teachers. And third, what is education meant for? Knowing who are we? What are we doing here? What's the business of life? What's going on here? Sometimes we completely miss the point in education. We don't teach people about your identity. Who are you? We don't tell people how are you and how you're related. Chanakya Pandit said, Atmavat manyate jagat. As you see yourself, you will see the world. So how do you see yourself? You see yourself as a robot. You see yourself as a human resource. You see yourself as a person who should perform and produce results. And like somebody was saying, get a 10 lakh per annum stuff ready for my parents, right? In this way, you see yourself, the mechanized side of yourself only you see. You don't really see internally, spiritually, who are you? And this is the great lacuna in our education. If you don't know who you are, you will never understand the things around you so well. It will be half-baked understanding. But if you start from who are you, whenever our founder went to this great universities, he asked, oh, you have branch for physics, you have for chemical engineering, you have for mechanical engineering, you have computer science, you have for that, this. Do you have a department for the self, for understanding the self? And they were all blinking. They don't have it. In our education system, we don't teach you who are you. We start straight away from learning things around you. And that's why people don't like what you try to push inside their head. But if it comes inside out, it's wonderful. So it's very important to know, and I want to relate with you a nice little thing I heard about Sherlock Holmes in the story, a little joke. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. I think many of you know the stories of Sherlock Holmes. Great detective. And Sherlock Holmes and Watson were on their mission. And one fine day, they had taken rest in a forest, waiting for something to happen. And they had to put up a tent, and they were sitting there inside. They took their rest in the tent. And suddenly, in the middle of the night, they woke up. And they were just discussing, looking at the skies and saying the stars and the moon and everything together. So brilliant, nice breeze blowing. And then Sherlock asked, what do you think, Watson? What does it feel like for you when you look at the sky like this? And Watson said, it's all about the amazing cosmos. It's about the stars and the moon. I feel so poetic. And he composed a poem. And then he said, actually looking at it astrologically, I wish I would know that what this is happening, how the planets are influences. Astronomically, I like to say this, but poetically, I like to say, he said a whole lot of things. And then he turned to Sherlock Holmes and said, what do you think about it? Sherlock Holmes, with his hand behind him, is lying down. He said, I think somebody has stolen our tent because we're able to see the sky. And Watson got up and said, wow, I didn't notice that. Actually, they were able to see the sky because the tent was no more there. And Sherlock Holmes coolly knew that. And he asked Watson, and he went on his trip talking about a lot of things. Our education system misses the main point. The main thing is missing. The tent is gone. The real spiritual internal aspect is not there. You don't know who you are. Education will be very difficult. India is famous. The Gurukula system, what do they teach you first? Who are you? And from there flows, what's the rest of the world? Spiritual education precedes material education. You have to ask these million-dollar questions. Why do I die? What's the goal of life? Where am I going? Why was I born? Who am I? These are foundation questions. And you have to ask them. And we should never dumb any child from asking these questions. So like I told you, inside out education, bring out the innate personality inside you. The spiritual and the material both go together. India is famous for a spiritual foundation, and that's why it was materially so wonderful. The GDP in India before the Britishers came in was 32, world number one. And today, when the Britishers left, it was 1. They plundered the whole of India. And they made us all look in a different direction and polarize us to forget our spiritual foundations and look at only the material aspect of it. And that's why we are stuck up. We are a nation of people who can do both. And we are a nation of people who can be spiritually grounded and materially fly high. And that's the deep inner strength of these people who have been cultured in India. This is what I was talking about. Dr. Shashank Ramanathan was talking about values. It's not enough if you simply give skills and knowledge. It takes them nowhere. values of life. Who are you? Where are you going? What's the mission of life? What's the goal of life? These things should be understood. And I teach my students, all of them who have organized this session, all the youth, and many of them who are here, who are new and who are also familiar. I teach them a lot about being grounded in the self first and reaching out for the skies. And if you find your place properly like that, there is no limit to what can happen to you, right? So materially, you may be anything. Materially, you may have so many disadvantages. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can still be learning. Learning is never denied to anybody. Education can be an option, but learning is available free, like many of the great speakers were commenting about. Learning is free. You may know this, it's a $20 note that's crumpled and thrown somewhere on the road. Physically, you may look like it's a waste piece of unusable commodity. But a $20 note, even if it is chucked into the waste paper basket, has immense value. You will pick it up even from there. That's why a real teacher, will pick up a student from anywhere, right? Nichadapi uttamam jnanam. From the lowest of the persons, he can get the highest of knowledge. This is an art. Teaching is an art. Learning is an art. Recognizing the ability in everybody to learn is a blessing. We must know how to do that. And therefore, I appreciate so much Dr. Anadura is saying that teaching is from the school. I mean, not from the school. It's from the home. The parents have to play a very important role in the education. They should not outsource the education to the school alone and think they do the job and then go and shout at them for not doing something. No, you have a pivotal role in the education of your children. It's at home that they learn the best. With the affection of the parents and the kith and kin and the siblings, there is a fantastic setting for learning. And then also the guru is teaching him, on a personal way. That combination is so wonderful. Learning occurs because the parents have to be role models. The teacher has to be a role model. What we lack in these days is teachers who are role models, parents who are role models. And that plays a very big factor. This is an unsaid, unspoken factor. But I am, not having a stake in the matter right now as a sannyasi, so I'm speaking openly and taking a big risk. Parents have to do their job. Teachers have to do their job, run the extra mile, right? So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, one of the world's greatest teachers, he started this institution with $7 in his pocket in America. And it rose to become one of the greatest, although we are not titled as an education institution. Prabhupada said each one of our centers is an education institution, imparting the greatest information and knowledge to every soul who comes here, irrespective of any judgment on him, irrespective of any external differences that may be there. He said we should award education to everybody. And today, we have so many students all over the world learning with no differences of language, of culture, or background, or anything. I can get admitted into this institution and learn for free. Everything is being taught, how to live a life, etc., etc., material knowledge, spiritual knowledge, etc. So I consider, I came across Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's books, and for the first time I saw a teacher who was so broad, all-encompassing, and he can accommodate any type of culture. He went to Moscow and spoke. He went to America, to Australia, to Africa, to India, name it. And to everybody, he was able to attract them to this genuine learning, universal message, which everybody accepted from whatever culture, whatever religion, whatever background they were. They all appreciated that this is real, genuine education. So Prabhupada said all our centers are education institutions. We may not be recognized by the government. We may not be having a formal 4 walls sitting in a campus and everything. But teachers and students here get together and have greatest relationships, and great transformation occurs, and great amount of knowledge is transmitted, received, practiced, realized, and happily lived. So I want to end this talk here by saying that one of the most important things in education is it to have a spiritual grounding and a foundation. And without that, anything may not take off for too long. Thank you very much. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.